Okay. So this is marketing management one. I am making one singular lecture so that you guys can study from here instead of me having to explain to everyone individually. This leaves me time, and then you guys can also study at your own pace. If there are any questions after this, then feel free to come to me. But like, please watch the video first because I am putting in a lot of time for this. So I will be using my notes for reference, but I would strongly urge you not to do the exact same thing. I would recommend you guys look at what ma'am has given us first. If there is anything else that you need, then you can look at this. Ma'am has also given us a few lectures on Moodle, which I would urge you to watch because those are not covered in my notes. So starting from lecture one, uh, we were basically taught that everything is a product, right? So product, services, everything together comes under one category. It is not like product or service or whatever. Everything we are referring to like at once because it makes it easier for us to like talk in general. So one example that ma'am gave in class on this day was that Pulse Candy had no marketing done until it was already popular. Uh, it was like this all happened because of like where it was sold and like not exactly how it was sold. They started off by taking Pulse Candy and they like put it at like chai wala, tapri wala, the pan sutta wala, all of those places where like traditionally people used to use like eclairs or alpenlibe as the uh, रिप्लेसमेंट फॉर चेंज लाइक 1 रुपया नहीं है 2 रुपया नहीं है सो उसके जगह पे लाइक एल्पेनलिबे दे दिया या फिर एक्लेयर्स दे दिया. These people started giving out pulse, and that is how it came into like common circulation. After this, once like pulse was already everywhere because people started eating the candy, they liked the candy, and that is how they got to the point where pulse candy became popular, and then after that they started doing marketing for it. Moving on to lecture 2, we started off by discussing with what marketing actually involves. Marketing involves uh, firstly, it involves understanding the market and consumers. Right, this comes in pieces. You start off by conducting research. You don't directly jump into what you think it is. You have to take solid facts. If I work only off my assumptions, then I will never ever understand what exactly matters to my consumer. So, in this stage, you start off by gathering insights about the market, about your competitors, about consumer preferences, and all of this together helps you guide decisions. Right? Over here, you start identifying and creating a need in the market. This means you need to recognize the existing gaps or shaping new desires through innovation and communication. What this means is that there are gaps in the market. There are always gaps in the market. You just need to know which gap there is for you to plug. Um, if you try solving a need that is like already solved, your product is going to fail mainly because somebody out there has probably done it better. Moving on, you also have to cater to a target audience. You cannot sell to everybody. If you market for everybody, then nobody is going to buy it because it's not for them. If you're making hiking boots, you're not selling it to an average consumer. You want to sell it to like people who want to go for hiking. Even within that, if you pick like a stronger subsection, for example, beginners or maybe people who are like very extreme hikers, in those cases your product and your product offerings are also going to be tailored to that specific customer group. Moving on, uh, creating and positioning products. This basically means that when you are developing your product, that is when marketing begins. You're not always sorry. Before that, actually, you don't act. You start with understanding what your marketing wants, and this usually happens before your product is even developed. After this, once you start creating your product, that is also when you start positioning it, right? So like I've written over here, you are working with design, R&D and strategy teams to build something that people want. If your customer doesn't want it, there is nothing for you to sell. This may require innovation, right, in the form of new ideas, new features, new competitions, uh, not new competitions, like all of these new features or approaches or ideas in order to stay ahead of competition. And then also your product positioning needs to be properly done. If you don't know where your product is going to be positioned or how your product is going to be positioned, you are just wasting your time. So This will involve defining how a product should be perceived in the market relative to your competitors, right? If I'm trying to sell a product, people need to know how my product is different from other products. I need to know how to position my product in a way where people can understand that, okay, this is what I am selling, and this is what this means. This is what the product will do. If everything is selling to the same exact group, it is not going to help, right? This will also, right, a strong piece over here is to showcase your USP or your unique selling point. This means you have to highlight what makes your product different or better than alternatives, right? You might not always have a better product, but if you have a different product which solves a different aspect of the problem that your customer has, your product will still sell. If I am selling an Android phone, right, I need to showcase how it is different from Apple. Or if I'm selling an Apple phone, I need to show how it is different from Android. If I tell everybody, like, if Apple comes into the market when it did, and it tells everybody that all we can do is like call people and send messages, every other phone could do the same thing. Why would people buy Apple, right? Apple came in with touchscreen. Apple came in with like a lot more aspects which other phones at the time did not, which is why the USP stood as strong as it did. Lastly, you also have to showcase product usage. You have to educate your customer on how to use your product effectively to maximize satisfaction. You cannot just sell a product, you have to sell knowledge. If people don't know what your product does or how to use it properly, then you are just wasting it, because at some point in time people are going to like realize that it doesn't have everything that that they want it to have. They have bought it for like one feature, but then like the 80 other features that it has all go under their radar. So you need to make sure that your customer is also aware of how to use the product. After this, you move on to building awareness and demand, right? This means that you have to create awareness for your product. So going back to the Pulse Candy example, that is what they did. They shared the product for free, right? They gave it to the tapri wala, the chai wala, the sutta wala, the pan wala. You give it to all of them and you let them handle it. The small kirana stores and everything. That is where they went and they placed their Pulse Candy product. Uh, then you come down to, so this specific point, ensuring people know about the brand and products through campaigns and outreach, right? So they did not do that. That is probably one exception. However, they did this in a different way. Otherwise, what most other brands will do or other products will need is like a proper campaign or a proper way to showcase that this is my product, this is what my product does, this is like a new product that either has come into the market or will be coming into the market soon, right? Apple has like a very huge event every year where it shows every single one of its new products that are launching, every new variation of the product, and that is how they create hype. uh, Moving on to brand visibility, this requires you to create a strong presence across platforms. If people do not know about you, then your product is going to lose all value, right? So, brands which do this well could be like Duolingo, for example. Duolingo's online presence is amazing. However, like offline and events, it lacks, but you want to ideally showcase across all events, sorry, or across all mediums. And when you show it across different mediums, that is when people can stay aware of it. There are people who are chronically online, there are people who have never seen the internet. Both of these people will need to know about your product, otherwise, you are losing out on customers. Then you move on to generating reach towards products. This means you're expanding exposure to new potential customers. So if like 10 people are buying my phone every single year and I want like more people to buy it, I will have to show it to those new people. I cannot just assume that somebody will find out about it on mistake, by mistake. I need to show new people about the product. I need to go to like a new like potential customer range. I will talk about this more in the like more in detail later on, but this is what it means. um, then you go down to creating product demand. You need to make strategies to make customers actively want your product. It can't just be like a passively seeking product. Passively seeking products could be the ones that like for example, if you go to like DMart or any other supermarket, they keep impulse purchase products right next to the cashier. For example, if they leave like Tic Tac, for example, or maybe like a Dairy Milk or a Kit Kat, something which is like impulse purchase, something which people just look at and they make a decision in 1 second whether they want it or not. Right? They'll pick it up and then they're going to go to the counter immediately. The longer they spend on thinking about it, the more likely it is that they give up on the product. So that is what you call like impulse products, but here you need to make something which people actively go out and buy. Uh, Next, you have to persuade and convince people to buy, right? This means using messages, promotion, psychology, how you frame your like how you frame your brand message and everything. All of this together helps you influence purchase decisions. Purchase decisions is what will actually get you sales. If people are not purchasing your product, people are like you are not getting any sales, you get nothing out of it. And last point over here is differentiating from your competitors. Make sure that your product or brand stands out in a crowded market, right? This means that if there are hundreds of phones, I need to know which one I want to buy. If there are hundreds of like water bottle brands, why am I going towards Tupperware? Hundreds of shoes, why am I going to Nike or Puma? Right? That is what you have to figure out. You need to showcase your product or your brand in a way that it stands out in a market where there are already enough competitors. Next stage is driving sales and revenue. This means that generating sales and supply chain management are two pieces over here. Generating sales means like converting awareness and interest into actual purchases. There's a lot of people who do window shopping. Window shopping does not get you money. Window shopping just gets you awareness, right? Or interest. If like 10 people tell you that your product is good but none of them buy it, it is like it has no value. So you have to create strategies, you have to create methods or like promotional tactics or something in order to get yourself more sales, right? This will also further be linked to getting profits, which means that those sales that you're making are actually financially beneficial for the business. If you're selling products at a discount, if you're selling products for like extremely cheap, your company is not making profits because every month all the money that you're supposed to make will get lost in the process. This again, linking further, it also connects to to supply chain management, where you coordinate like production, distribution, logistics, making sure that all products are available when and where customers want them, right? This means that if I want chocolate today and if I cannot buy chocolate today, I might not want it again tomorrow. When the customer wants a product, that is the only time when you can sell it to them. Long-term purchases, for example, phones and computers, people put a lot of time and effort into thinking about because they are expensive and because they are more time commitment, right? It's a longer commitment. People, like if I buy a new phone, for example, I will use it for 3 years. If I buy a new car, I will use it for 5 to 7 years. If I buy a new house, I might use it for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years, maybe even longer perhaps. And you need to make sure that like those products are placed well. However, supply chain management mainly talks about products on a smaller scale. If I want to buy food, if I don't get food from you today, you cannot sell me the same food tomorrow because I might not want it. If I need rice today, rice is a bulk purchase item, but it's also low intensity. So if I don't get rice from you, I will move on to someone else and buy it from there, right? So this is where you get into supply chain management. Uh, Supply chain management, again, repeating the definition, is coordinating production, distribution, and logistics to make sure that products are available when and where the customer wants them. This is not traditionally marketing, but it is connected in the go to market execution. Next, customer relationships and retention. You need to create customer loyalty. Building trust and emotional connection with your customers is the only way you can ensure repeat purchases. This means that trust comes in the form of having a product which is good, having a product which is solid, right? Something which people look at and they're like, okay, I want this, and this is all I want. Emotional connection is something much deeper, where even if they are not purchasing your product, they are going to tell people about it. They're going to share about it. They're going to look out for it. If you look at Apple fans today, Apple fans are so deeply connected with the brand itself, that if a new phone comes out, even though they don't buy it, if someone else wants to buy it, that's the first phone they will recommend. Customer retention are strategies that you use to keep your existing customers engaged and reduce churn. Churn means losing customers, right? If you have a high churn rate, which means a lot of your customers are leaving. uh, Customer satisfaction, which means meeting or exceeding customers expectations to create positive experiences. If a customer is satisfied, then they had a positive experience. If a customer is not satisfied, they had a negative experience. So not satisfied customers are the unsatisfied or not satisfied customers are the ones who leave and do not come back. Next, you have satisfying needs, which means that ensuring that the product fulfills the problem or desire it was marketed for. If a product does 10 things but it does not do the one thing properly that I wanted it to, I for me it is not satisfying, right? Like if I want a phone for calling, just calling, you can give me amazing messaging features, you can give me amazing like wallpaper selections and whatnot, but if the calling experience is bad, or if the calling experience is like unfulfilling, it is going to leave a negative taste in my mouth, and I will not use the brand again. I might even sell the product off to like second hand salesman. Brand image, brand and image management. So brand and product management, which means you're overseeing the overall strategy, consistency and growth of both your like your individual product as well as the brand. And public image, maintaining your public image basically means you're managing the reputation through PR, crisis communication and consistent brand messaging. So one way you are talking about your product and your brand and what it stands for. Another way, you are maintaining the image in public. This means avoiding negative reputation. So there's a difference between reputation and objective. Objective is what your brand is going to sell on a daily basis. Reputation is what you need to maintain if things go bad. And seventh and the last piece in this one was strategic oversight. This mainly talks about C-level marketing, right? Which means your CMOs, like chief marketing officers and execute and other executive roles, right? So chief level executives are the ones who decide high level strategies. They align marketing with business goals and they lead large scale initiatives across the company. This is pretty straightforward, but even so, what this means is that the extreme top level of management are the ones who make the major decisions regarding which direction your company is moving in or which direction your brand is moving in. They will be the ones who are deciding where your product is going, how your product is going, and to whom your product is going. They will also decide how the product is being marketed to the public, and how the audience should see it is what they are trying to decide. From there, it comes down to the lower levels where people actually execute on that vision. So the flow of marketing itself starts from understanding the market, then to creating the right product, then to promoting that product, then selling it, and then building long-term relationships with the customers you have sold to, and managing your brand reputation, and then creating like a guiding strategy. So, answering the question of what is marketing, the simplest definition of marketing is meeting needs profitably. If you are meeting needs but you're not profitable, it is not marketing. By creating a product, you solve a problem. You try to improve the quality of life, and that is what you try to sell. The customer buys because his or her life improves or a problem is solved. So, when you create a product, your objective is to help someone improve something in their life, because that is the only reason why people will buy. That is how you sell it to people, that okay, this is how it will help you. A customer, on the other hand, will buy the product because they actually see the product that you are selling making an improvement in their life. The American Marketing Association, or AMA, defines marketing as the process of planning and executing the concept executing conception, pricing, promotion, and distribution of ideas, goods, and services to create exchanges that satisfy individual and organizational objectives. It is a very complicated explanation, but it like summarizes everything that I have explained so far. All of these functions together are needed for the three steps of marketing. One thing that ma'am also highlighted in class was that marketing is a process that is scientific in nature. It is not purely creative, but it is scientific. Uh, Moving on to benefits. Benefits are what the customer seeks out when they try to buy a product. There are two types of benefits that a customer seeks. One is a functional benefit, or also called utilitarian, and the other one is emotional, also called hedonic. So, functional benefits or utilitarian benefits are the rational benefits. These are the ones that you think about when you consider on the basis of logic, and they are also tangible in nature, which makes them easier to measure. Right? For example, if I'm buying a car, you look at the tangible aspects of it, right? So how fuel efficient it is, or how reliable the product is, like the car is, and like other categories of a similar kind, right? This will also include like cost and other aspects. On the other hand, emotional or hedonic benefits are the ones that you value on an emotional level, and they are also intangible. Right? This would be the feel of a car, the design of a car, maybe even the color of a car. These are things that hold value to you as an individual. So functional or utilitarian benefits are the ones that are standard accepted, right? They are also called hygiene factors. I will get into more detail on that later, but they're also called hygiene factors. Hygiene factors are the ones without which you do not value a product, and emotional ones are the ones which actually sell the product to you. The value that an individual feels is an amalgamation of both types of benefits. Utilitarian and hedonic benefits cannot function in isolation. They are both that sell together. If I really like the color of a car but the car is horrible, I will not buy it, right? If if the fuel efficiency and everything is outstanding but the car looks like a piece of shit, I will not want it. So these are things that that you have to be careful about as a marketer, to make sure that the product that you are selling and the product that you are selling is on two levels, and it is like providing benefits on both those levels. One where it is utilitarian, one where it is hedonic. Right? So moving on to the three steps of marketing. First step is to create value, second step is to communicate value, and third step is to deliver value. Right? You are selling to the customer to make a profit, so you need to make sure that all three of these pieces are done properly. Here we move on to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is probably something that you have already studied, but in case you haven't, it is a theory in psychology which talks about human needs. Right? It's put in a calendar in a triangular form like this one, and what it does is it mainly talks about how people value the different aspects in the triangle. So on the base level, you have is your physiological needs, which is aspects which are necessary for basic survival. Right? These are like food, water, sleep, shelter, clothing, anything that is required to stay alive. If you do not have these, you cannot aim for something higher. Right? If I don't have a place to sleep, it doesn't matter if I like have the best looking, I don't know, uh, like if I'm eating like luxury food, if I can't even afford like regular food on a daily basis. Then you move on to safety. Right? Safety needs are mainly talking about security and stability. So once you get survival, people want to feel safe and free from threats. Right? If I have absolutely nothing, I don't mind sleeping on the road, but if I have like everything else, I would want a place which is safe. I would want a place which is free from threats. Right? This means physical safety, it means financial security, health, stable job, protection from accidents or danger, all of that. So if I am unwell and living on the road, I don't mind. But as soon as I have a house, I need to make sure I'm also well. Next, you come down to love and belonging needs. This talks about like this talks about mainly how humans are social beings and they need relationships, communities, and connection. Right? This is where people move on to the social aspects of life, which is friendships, family, intimacy, peer acceptance, even like a sense of belonging in groups. Right? Uh, if you are lonely or isolated, it might stop your progression towards the next few levels. Then you have esteem needs, which talk about respect and recognition. Right? These are your desire for self worth, respect, recognition, all of that. Confidence, achievement, independence, reputation, appreciation, awards, all of these together contribute towards your esteem needs. These are of two types. One is lower esteem and one is higher esteem. Lower esteem means respect from others. This means status and recognition that other people provide to you, how other people view you. That is what you are looking at in terms of lower esteem. Higher esteem talks about self respect, right? It talks about confidence, it talks about mastery over something. And the last piece in this entire thing, the topmost layer of the Maslow's need hierarchy, is self actualization. This, by definition, is the highest stage, uh, realizing and living up to one's full potential. That is what it is defined as. This talks about creativity, pursuing personal growth, problem solving, morality, purpose, or maybe even leaving a legacy. And very few people reach this stage consistently, but like your ultimate motivation, if you have every single other piece that I have mentioned over here, this is what you are aiming for. So, in very short, Maslow's need hierarchy says that you can't chase dreams if you are hungry, you can't focus on creativity if you're worried about safety, you cannot feel confident without belonging, and true fulfillment only comes after all basic and psychological needs are met. This is what it looks like. So, in case you want to pause and look at it, this is when you do it. I will be moving on. Um, Next, we come down to needs, wants, and demands. When you are hungry, instead of eating just anything, you eat a pizza, right? You will wait until you get the pizza. You are not eating anything until that happens. If I'm very hungry today, I go to Zomato and I order from Domino's. I will wait for that pizza to come. I have other food at home. I have an apple, I have oranges, whatever, but I will not eat that. This is a want, right? A directed need is a want. This is a very crucial piece for you to understand. I have a need, right? My need is hunger, but the need is directed towards pizza, not towards food. Pizza specifically. So that pizza in this case is a want. Wants and needs are not equal to demand. Demand basically means you have a need or a want and the ability to pay. If you cannot pay, then a need or a want is mean like it's just like a need or a want. It does not mean it's not demand. Demand is when I can afford to pay for it, when I can back my need or want. Different types of needs in marketing and consumer behavior. Um, First part is stated needs. Stated needs are of these needs can be divided into five broad categories. First one is stated needs. Stated needs means needs that the customer explicitly mentions when asked. Right? These are directed, spoken demands that a customer communicates, and the companies must fulfill these at a very basic level in order to meet expectations. For example, if a student says, I need a laptop with a fast processor for my assignments, it means you cannot have a slow processor. Fast processor is something that the student definitely wants. It is something that you are aware of, right? If you, like I mentioned over here, simply fulfilling the stated need does not keep you in, like it just keeps you in the game. It does not make you stand out because this is your basic elimination level. If you do not have this, it means you do not have anything. Then you move on to the real needs. Real needs are the actual requirements that lie behind what the customer has already said. This basically means that if people say something, it might not be everything that they want. A fast processor might not be the only thing that the customer wants. The customer might want something more. For example, if they want like an affordable car, right? They they mean that they want something which has a low cost of ownership, right? An affordable car doesn't mean something cheap right now. It means something cheaper in the long run, right? It means good mileage, something which is inexpensive to maintain, something which is also reliable. Companies that identify the real need are the ones that can deliver more value than competitors who only focus on stated needs. Moving on to unstated needs. Unstated needs are the ones which the customer does not voice but assumes will be met, right? This basically includes like all implicit needs. When you book a hotel room, for example, you might not say that the room needs to be clean, but it is assumed. It's a standard like assumption, because even though the room isn't clean, you haven't paid for the room to be explicitly clean. You assumed that it was going to be clean, right? Like a customer will be upset if the need that like if the under like unstated need has not been met, right? It is required to maintain like to avoid dissatisfaction. Moving on, you have delight needs, unexpected features or benefits that pleasantly surprise the customer. This means these are things that go beyond what the customer actually wants, right? They're not asked for, but they do make a huge impact. If a restaurant gives you like a free dessert on your birthday, you didn't pay for it, you didn't expect it to happen, but the fact that you got it makes you happy. Uh, this is what like helps your brand to create like a strong or emotional connection. Secret needs, which are largely hedonic in nature, these mean like largely hedonic, which means like they're specifically hedonic, they are not utilitarian. These are needs that the customers do not openly admit. These are often driven by emotion, status, or desires rather than functionality. Uh, for example, if you buy an expensive branded watch, someone buying an expensive branded watch might say it is for durability, but secretly it is to signal status and prestige, right? A student who chooses like a trendy sneaker brand may say it is comfortable, but secretly it's about fitting into society. Tapping into these secret needs is what helps you achieve your main, uh, it helps you achieve like a deeper level of customer connection. Next, you have types of demand in marketing. Uh, Again, these are of a few types. Negative demand, which means like consumers actively dislike a product and may even pay to avoid it, right? uh, the product exists but people perceive it as undesirable due to fear or cost or cultural belief. For example, vaccination, right? People avoid them because of like fear or misinformation, right? Dental treatments, people like patients will often delay them because they're associated with pain. Marketing strategy for something like this would be to change perception through education, awareness, and incentives. Then you have like non-existent demands. When the customer exists, but like they're uninterested, when the product exists, but the customers are uninterested or unaware of it. This means that customers don't see the relevance or value in your product as of yet. Health insurance in rural areas where people may not recognize the importance, uh, it will not sell there. Then you have advanced smart home gadgets in like low tech communities. If I don't understand how technology works, smart home is not going to help me. Right? It is not something I'm going to be interested in. It is not something that I'm going to demand. Right? It might not be. It's definitely not a need. It might not even be a want because I don't care about it enough. Uh, you again now you move on to latent demand. Latent demand means that there is a need, but there is no product which satisfies it. Customers want something, but it hasn't been invented or marketed effectively yet. So before smartphones, people wanted an all-in-one device for calling, music, and internet, and that was the latent demand, like for it, right? Eco-friendly and affordable cars for like consumers. These are again like these are all things which you don't like you want, like right. I would want to have like a greener earth, but that doesn't mean that like there are products for it as of yet which do the same level of work that non products do. I would not pay for like paper straws, for example, because even though they reduce like plastic in the ocean, they do not do so effectively. Because end of the day, if I'm having a bad experience drinking whatever it is through that paper straw, it defeats the purpose. Declining demand is when the demand for a product is dropping over time. This could be because of new substitutes, changing tastes, or even technology shifts. Right, like landline, CDs, and like physical newspapers are like pretty much gone. Um, this is mainly because of the fact that technology is evolving. You have everything online. You have everything saved on like a phone, which is like in your pocket. I don't need a landline if I can just call the person I want directly. Seasonal and irregular demand. Right, this is demand that fluctuates depending on time, season, or situation. Uh, Air conditioners in summer, heaters in winter, umbrellas during monsoon. Tourism will peak during the holidays, but is otherwise relatively low. This is what seasonal or irregular demand is. Then you have full demand, which talks about demand which is exactly equal to the supply and the consumers are satisfied. This is the ideal situation for a business where you have neither shortage nor surplus. This include like popular daily essentials like milk or bread, and also like for example, if you want to look at it in like more of a business environment, you have Apple, which maintains just enough stock of iPhones to meet sales. It does not have so much that their phones go to waste, and not even so less that people like do not have enough. Next, you have overfull demand, which means the demand is higher than like the organization's capacity to supply. An example of this would be like Apple, like iPhone launches with massive pre-orders. Uh, Popular restaurants have like a long wait time or public transport during peak hours. There is no space. You cannot offer the experience that you are trying to or offer the product that you are trying to because too many people want it. Unwholesome demand, which means there is demand for products that are harmful to individuals or society. Uh, the product satisfies a desire, but it creates some negative consequences. So this mainly talks about like cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, junk food, all of that, and even social media apps to some extent because it causes addiction. These are the 8 different types of demand. Repeating them once: negative demand, non existent demand, latent demand, declining demand, seasonal or irregular demand, full demand, overfull demand, and unwholesome demand. Then you have your 5 stages of marketing process. First one is understanding marketplaces and needs, right? Needs, wants, demands, I have explained already. Exchanges and markets, right? Uh, Actually, going back to needs, wants, demands, needs not only serve as a hygiene factor, which is an elimination criteria, but also motivators to buy products, right? So this means that like if I need something, it doesn't only serve as a hygiene product, right? A hygiene factor. Hygiene factor is something that will help you decide whether or not the product even counts in your selection process, right? And motivator is something that that improves incentive to buy a product. Okay, moving on. Exchange and markets. Marketplace is a cluster or a group of buyers, and industry is a group of sellers. This is what the entire exchange looks like. You can pause and look at it. I will be moving on. Channels of marketing: communication, distribution, and service. Communication is mainly through channels like social media. Distribution is through your distributors, your dealers, your wholesalers, people who are uh, packaging the product and moving it forward, or stocking your product, or people who are selling your product. And lastly, you have your services, which are banking, payment gateways, cold storages, etc. Who is a marketer? A marketer is anyone who is seeking something in response. Right? This can be in the form of goods, services, information, etc. Marketers are also of many types. Politicians are also marketers. Even the government is a marketer. However, once there is a transfer of ownership, they become a consumer. Right? Customer is someone who buys. Consumer is someone who uses. Your end user is your consumer. Your customer and consumer may not be the same person. Uh, Right. Again, your audience is basic, and like another definition that is important here is audience, which is when you are communicating, the people who are listening to the communication is the audience. Your intended audience and your actual audience may again be different. Audiences may be larger than what you intended to be. Right. These are the different types of markets. You can look at the image. I will be moving on. So, if you look at the government, for example, the government gets taxes from all other markets. It also facilitates transfer of goods and money, and therefore it is a market. Manufacturers are dependent on the resource market, and intermediaries as well. Intermediary market is the retailers, wholesalers, etc. So if you look at this image again, your government is linked to your manufacturers because they get taxes from here. Your consumers, they get taxes from here. Resources and intermediaries, they get taxes from here as well. So your government is your centerpiece. However, if the government wants a service, they have to go to the respective market, and therefore this is like an interlinking chart. Uh, Again, some values that like will be calculated further down. It is listed in the doc, but I'm not going to discuss this. So CSAT talks about customer satisfaction, and delight basically means you are exceeding expectation. Now moving on to case studies that ma'am had. So one of the case studies that she talked about was the story of New Coke, right? So Pepsi hired an external company to conduct a blind taste test. In this they gave like glasses to people. One contained Coke, one contained Pepsi, and a majority of the people said that Pepsi tasted better. So Coke management, like the rest of the world, thought that the taste is what defined everything. So they made a new formula which tasted as close to Pepsi as possible and released it under the title of New Coke, which means now the market had three options for the same product, right? Which was a black cola drink. One was Coke, one was Pepsi, and one was New Coke. Right? This led to a significant increase in sale, right, to Coke, and it gave them the edge in the market again. But then after this, at some point, they removed the old Coke drinks from production. The result of this was an immediate backlash because people across USA started revolting. They demanded that the old Coke drink be reinstated into the markets. In response to this, Coke management introduced the old Coke back and proceeded to remove new Coke. Right? They realized that customer satisfaction is not just linked to taste, it is also affiliated with other attributes that a customer has. They also came to the conclusion that customer satisfaction is a very important thing. This was lecture 2. Moving on to lecture 3. Uh, a brand carries perception, identity, and image. It is an offering coming from a known source. It builds up trust, reliability, and that is why people are willing to pay a premium for it. Brand names are usually protected, ideally should be protected, and a brand as an entity is also protected. Right? So, brand is basically your entire title. This is what everything is a brand, right? Anyway, continuing over here, the quality is always perceived quality and not actual quality. Quality that you think is of a product is always what you think it is. It is never an actual solid defined quality. So continuing to the 5 stages in marketing process, the second is like devising a customer value driven strategy. This means, so what do you do before you introduce a new product into the market, right? You research the background of the field, industry, etc. uh, Case study for this again, Indian cola market in the 1970s. Coke came to India in 1956. They entered the market and like it was instantly successful, right? And Indian companies tried to again compete with them. So Parle tried to compete. They launched a black cola drink called Gluco Cola, but they ran into like legal issues with the naming and whatnot. Following this, they released an orange fizzy drink called Gold Spot, and they launched a lemony drink called Limca. So the fizzy drinks market suddenly had like a lot of options. Then after Indira Gandhi's ousting, George Fernandez, who was a very Swadesi person, came into power, and he wanted to provide resources to locals to help them compete against foreign brands, specifically in this case Coke. So the Indian Patents Act was introduced, which was a foreign amendments act, which forced Coke to either disclose their formula or shut down operations. So instead of disclosing, Coke shut their operations and they left the Indian market, which suddenly created a vacuum of black cola drinks in the market, along with job vacancies for uh, Coke employees and also for the bottling plant employees. The government and their supporting uh, like their support released like Cola 77, which completely failed because it was just a cheap imitation, like a bad imitation of Coke. So here is when new competitors entered. Satwan Singh was a bottling plant owner, and he decided that he should just create a black fizzy drink of his own. So he created and launched Campa Cola, which was a huge success. Along with the taste being very similar to Coke, the branding style was also almost identical. Despite its success, other cola brands kept trying to compete for the space that Coke left empty. So the reason why Campa Cola succeeded was because of the brand image of Coke and how they kept it very similar to Coke. Um, Now again, moving on to marketing environment types. This is this is the image. You can look at this. I will be moving on. Uh, your core of marketing strategy has four pieces. One is acquiring customers. Then you have engaging with your acquired customers, retaining your customers, and growing your customer base. This is very self-explanatory, so I'm not going to dive into too much detail. Basically, what this means is your main objective is to get customers, then you need to engage with these customers, and then you need to retain these customers, and then later you need to grow your customer base so that you get more customers. The core of marketing as a whole is based on two questions. One is who are we going to serve, and second is what are we going to serve them with. Customers are usually constrained by one of two factors. One is time, and one is money. People who have time are willing to spend time and not money, and people who have money are willing to spend money and not time. So your product needs to also focus on this. Benefit based segmentation is basically segmenting the market based on these benefits, right? This means you're dividing the market into a group of consumers based on the specific benefits that they seek, right? So either they seek the benefit of saving time or of saving money, right? You do not always look at demographics, age, income, gender, but but like you're mainly focusing on why customers buy, or like what value are they looking for. So examples of the benefits that they look for is like quality, convenience, price, status, performance, health, wellness, all of that. Um, so these are like examples of benefits, but like the importance behind these is also that it helps companies design better products and marketing messages that match customer motivations, enables better targeting and positioning by aligning customer priorities, and can create like strong brand loyalty since the products directly satisfy key benefits. An example of this is the toothpaste market. Some people buy toothpaste for whitening, right, which is the aesthetic benefit. Some buy it for cavity protection, which is the health benefit, and some also buy it for fresh breath, which is for maybe like a social or maybe even like a romantic benefit. Marketing philosophies. So the old marketing philosophy was talking about creating products which are more innovative than the ones which are already in the market. Right? You create and push to market as soon as you can and like innovate with every release. This is a strategy that works better if you have the resources to publish that much, but in the newer age, like a lot of small companies are up and coming, and this is not feasible for everyone. uh, this also comes with its own set of challenges, like too many options, so people don't know what to pick. Then the newer marketing philosophy is you sense and respond to what the market wants. This is a strategy that works better when you do not have an endless supply of resources. What is the difference between sales and marketing? Selling is an inside out approach. It starts at the factory and you measure its success with volume and profits, right? Volume sold and profit. Marketing, on the other hand, is an outside in approach. You start at the customer, you figure out what the customer wants, and then you work inwards. And your measurement of success in this case is customer satisfaction. Performance measurement, again, you can measure it on different bases: your profits, your customer satisfaction rate or CSR, and society or human welfare. These are the images for it. You can pause over here and look at them, but I'm going to be moving. Next, we move on to Jobs to be Done theory by Clayton Christensen. Uh, this was a framework that explained customer behavior by focusing on the job that the customer hires a product or service to do. The idea behind it was that people don't just buy products, they hire them to solve a problem or to fulfill a need in a specific situation. The focus is basically shifting attention from like products, features to the underlying purpose of use, which means which means that instead of looking at what features of the product are like people buying for, you look at the reason behind those features having so much value. Jobs equals to progress that a customer is trying to make in a given context, right? Over here, the entire thing can be explained with the McDonald's application, which is what Christensen's case study was. The main idea was to figure out why customers are buying milkshakes or why customers are not buying milkshakes. Because milkshake sales were very low for McDonald's and they wanted to know why people were buying those. So they stood outside McDonald's and they started asking people, and the results that they got were that the morning commuters hired milkshakes because they were filling and they lasted during their commute, and also they were easier to consume in the car. When people are traveling for an extensive duration, especially to work, they want something which will last longer, right? The viscosity and the thickness of the milkshake is what like kept it alive for much longer. It was also more filling. It wasn't something that they could just like eat and be done with. It lasted them throughout the commute, so they were more full when they got to work. Right. On the other hand, uh, parents in the afternoon got milkshakes to treat their kids. Right. In both cases, over here, I have used the terminology of hired. That is also what Christensen did. The job was not buying a milkshake, right? But the main idea behind it was in the morning you are solving boredom and hunger during long commutes, while in the afternoon you are providing children with a reward. As a result, McDonald's redesigned and marketed uh, milkshakes to be thicker and of different flavors. In either case, you are appealing to that job that consumer that you are trying to appeal to. Customer satisfaction. Repeat customer does not equal to customer loyalty. It is not about the brand or product, but the need that the brand or product solves. Customer satisfaction is an indicator of retention, but that doesn't mean it will lead to more sales. However, it could result in increased goodwill, which will increase marketing by word of mouth. In a lot of cases, customer satisfaction is also associated with a lot of other factors. For example, Savlon's product wasn't as successful as Dettol because it did not sting and it did not have a cloudy appearance when you added it to water. Customers thought so. Dettol created like a lot. Dettol played on the assumption that people had that like antiseptic liquid should sting. Savlon failed because of like a lack of burning. People thought that the product did not work. Here you have your importance performance matrix. Right, this talks about how important a product is versus how well it performs. Right, ideally you want everything to be here, right? This is where it is like highly important to the customer and you are also performing well in that regards. This is like low priority, the bottom left one. Top left is somewhere you should probably concentrate because customers value it but you are not performing as well. And the bottom right is probably an area you can cut down on because it is not something that people like really value as much, but you are spending a like you are probably spending a lot of resources to perform well in that regards. Another case study that we discussed after this on like in lecture 4 was the failure of Bislery's Urza. In 2014, after 2 years of development, Bisleri launched Urza into the energy drink market. It was placed as a caffeine-free energy drink which used vitamins and minerals. However, this also invited competition from other non-caffeine energy sources such as fruit juices and electrolyte drinks. Additionally, Urza was a highly Indianized brand, right, with the name literally meaning energy, but they did all of their marketing using foreign individuals, right? They had only foreigners in their entire acting. So it sort of like led to a conflict in the brand's actual identity. Urza needed reason to believe, which they did not have. Reason to believe or RTB is something which convinces your audience that your product actually works. This usually comes in the form of concrete facts. For example, Bonvita had DHA, right, which helps with brain development. This was something when they put in their advertising and their marketing and their entire strategy, it showed to people that Bonvita had something valuable. Even though as a consumer you might not know what DHA is or what DHA does, you will value it more because it is selling something which you think has value. And moving on to Patanjali's marketing strategy. So according to ma'am, Ramdev Baba is the best marketer out there, and this is why. Ramdev Baba started off by teaching uh, yoga to senior citizens. From there, he pushed everyone to he pushed for Ayurvedic supplements and medicines to his audience, right? And eventually, he came down to Patanjali, where he started selling these on his own instead of telling people to go elsewhere. Eventually, he also broadened his target audience to include the younger generation, and now has also expanded into like a large conglomerate, and now sells a range of FMCG goods. Uh, Lecture 5. I do not have all the notes, but this is what I have so far. Situation analysis. Um, you assess the performance of a company on the basis of many factors, right? Again, like going back to this image that I showed earlier, this is where I discuss it a little bit better. You have your task and you have a broad strategy. Broad level is where you look at your overall strategy, and task level is your micro analysis. Again, you have two types of stakeholders. Your external stakeholders are usually your customers, and your internal stakeholders are your shareholders. Internal marketing is holistic marketing, where you are looking at performance marketing, you are looking at relationship marketing, internal marketing, and integrated marketing. Your question is always to ask who is your target or like target market and how are you going to support them better. Here we also move on to the 4 P's, right, which is mainly applicable to tangible goods, which is product, promotion, place, and price. So starting off with product, you look at like quality, utility, you look at versatility and features, variety that it offers, uh, design, package. Again, all of these talk. So product encompasses like an entire selection of what your actual product is, what your product offers, and what your product, like how easy it is to acquire your product. Next, you move on to promotion, right? Promotion covers all communication methods used to inform, persuade, and remind your customers about your product. So, different types of advertising, PR, social media, all of that. This can also include sales promotions and also by like word of mouth. Then you have place, which ensures that the product is available to customers at the right place, right time. And this mainly comes down to your distribution channels, your location strategies, like we discussed earlier, inventory logistics, and e-commerce omni-channel. Last is price, where you talk about how affordable the product is, the value that customers pay for the product. So your pricing strategies, credit terms, all of that. This is a table. It is all in the document. You can look at it. Then we come down to the 7 P's of marketing, which is mainly for intangible goods and services. Here you have the repeat of product, price, place, and promotion. But now you also have people, process, and physical evidence. People mainly talks about the people who offer the service. This usually gets applied for service-oriented products, which is why we're talking about these new aspects. So the people who interact with your customer, the people who interact with your consumer, if you're offering a service, who is the one who is actually selling, like who is delivering the service, right? Process, again, how smooth is it, how consistent is it, how efficient it is, and like transparency. And lastly, you have physical evidence, which is tangible cues that reassures customers about the service quality. This often includes like branding, the environment, uh, all of that stuff. So, next segment is the Ansoff matrix, which is the growth matrix. It is a strategic tool that helps businesses plan growth by linking products and markets. It shows 4 strategies: market penetration, market development, product development, and diversification. Market penetration basically means you need to focus on, like, you have your existing product with an existing market and you're trying to break into that market. Uh, you're trying to stand out better in a market that you are already a part of. Market development means that you have an existing product, but you're sorry, wait, repeating this one. Market penetration means that you are selling a product which already exists into a market which already exists. It might be a new product for you, but it is a product which traditionally exists. Market development would be that you have a product which already exists, but you're selling it in a market that does not. So, for example, when Starbucks entered India after its success in US, it was a new product in a new market. Sorry, it was an existing product which entered a new market. Then you have product development, which is a new product in an existing market. So Apple launching AirPods for the first time, right? This is basically introducing products to an existing customer base. And lastly, you have diversification, where you have new products and a new market. This is what the diagram looks like. So product and market. Uh, Moving on to lecture 6. Difference between absolute and relative market share, right? This comes in the BCG matrix context. Absolute market share is measuring the company share of the total market, right? If a market is 100 units and your firm sells 25, your absolute market share is 25%. This means how much of the market you have control over. Relative market share is comparing the company's market share against the largest competitor, right? So the formula for this would be market share divided by largest competitor's market share. If you have 25% and your largest competitor has 50%, your relative market share is 0.5. In the BCG matrix, relative market share is used instead of absolute because it shows competitive strength, not just size. Right? I do not have an image of the BCG matrix, but this is what it looks like. This is what the BCG matrix looks like. Right? Market share versus market growth. CAC is also what you call customer acquisition cost. Moving on to segmented targeting positions, right? Which means to divide or classify a set of prospective buyers into classes on some basis. You segment people in order to understand the market better, and also to serve the customers better. You can segment them on multiple bases. First one is demographic based, where you pick up like demographic oriented categories like age, gender, income, etc., and you segregate based on that. This is the most basic and widely used your most basic and widely used form of segmentation, right? Demographic also helps influence basic needs and affordability. Then you move on to geographic segmentation, where you talk about like location, city tier, ethnicity, urban, rural. All of this helps you understand where the customer lives. Right? This also helps you understand like the culture, the climate. Right? If I grow up in India, the same principles and practicalities that apply to customers in like US, for example, will not apply to me. Psychographic segmentation is mainly on how people think and live. This is your mindset, personality, and lifestyle. So, values, lifestyle type, which is a money constraint, time constraint, intergenerational influence, all of those. And then you have your behavioral segmentation, which is your like focus on how customers act or behave with the product. So, what do they seek for with the product? If I have long hair, dandruff, like if people are purchasing products for long hair, right? Or maybe like dandruff free, or maybe whitening toothpaste. All of these talk about like what their intention is with the product. Again, this will also include like occasion of use, usage rates, buyer readiness, loyalty levels, all of these. Everything is in the document. You can look at the document. simultaneously. Mixed and hybrid segmentation. Uh, this mixes elements of all of the above four categories, and it has like multiple aspects to it. So technographic segmentation, for example, generational segmentation, hybrid models, all of these together also talk. These are sub elements. These are not going to be asked in the exam. I have included them for extra understanding. Then you have targeting. Targeting talks about taking a segment and catering to that segment, right? If you direct marketing tactics to cater to a particular segment, then you can sell better. Types of targeting, you can start off with mass marketing or undifferentiated targeting, where you have a single product or a marketing mix for the entire market, right? This assumes that all consumers or all customers have the same exact needs. Your focus is on volume and reach and not on customization. For example, mineral, salt, cola beverages, everything which is like mass produced and mass sold. These are things which do not really, these are more basic need oriented. Not cola beverages, but mineral water and salt, for example. Differentiated targeting is also called segmented marketing. So first one was mass marketing or undifferentiated. Now we have differentiated, where we have different products for different segments. You have salt, you have regular salt, and you also have low sodium variants of salt, right? Dove has like men's care and women's care, all of those. So you have the same product, but you are differentiating what product you have depending on what your market is. Niche targeting, which means you're concentrating your marketing to focus on a specific and well defined segment with unique needs. Plus size clothing, petite clothing, luxury, vegan cosmetics, all of those, right? It aims at a very small niche of your customer, but that is the customer base that you are targeting. One-on-one targeting basically is mass customization. So Subway, for example, does this, where everyone builds their own. Every customer has their own customized experience. Nike by you, Spotify playlists, all of these are individualized experiences. Then you have micro marketing and local targeting, right? This is beyond the class scope, so I'm skipping over it right now. Uh, Moving on to lecture 7, you talk about positioning, creating an image in such a way that you have a distinct image in the mind of a consumer. You create favorable associations and linking the product to the positive part of the consumer mindset. It helps consumers know what your brand stands for and how it is different from others. If all brands are the same, if all brands are positioned the same, there is no difference between the two brands, and no one will, like, people might pick yours, people might not. Stages of positioning, right? You assign a category membership, like we defined earlier. Maggie, it's the category that, or like a set of products that cater to a similar need. Uh, Maggie is placed under the instant snacks category. You decide a competitor frame of reference. It helps you define who you are competing against. This can come in the form of product form, right, which means similar product. Product category, which is on a more like broader category. Generic competition, which is products fulfilling the same need. And like share of wallet or budget. Share of wallet basically means competing for the same spending, same amount that the customer spends for a similar broad need. Coke versus chips, both are snacks, right? And they both cost roughly the same. So you're aiming for the same amount or the same category. This is the image for that. You can look at that. I will be moving on. You have straddle positioning, which is like a completely new category. It combines benefits of two different categories to appeal to multiple segments. It creates a new hybrid space in the market. For example, IKEA combined affordability with stylish design, or Tesla combines luxury performance with an eco-friendly technology. This is called straddle positioning. So we discussed the first two stages, which was assigning category membership and deciding a customer frame of reference. The next two are points of difference and points of parity. One is how you stand out from the rest, that is points of difference, and one is how common, like how similar you are with your competitors. This is your points of parity. uh, Substantiate, and then last you have substantiators or reason to believe. Like we discussed earlier, this is something that convinces people or provides proof or evidence about your product or your brand. Colgate, for example, say dentist recommended, so it convinces people that if dentist trusts it, so can I. Repositioning, when you want to change your positioning in the market, it is called rebranding or repositioning. It is done by changing one of the keys of marketing, like we discussed earlier. It is needed when there is a difference between your ideal image and your customer's perception. If what you are aiming for or what you are trying to sell to is not the same as what your customer thinks of you as, then there is a need for repositioning. Old Spice, for example, repositioned from old fashioned to youthful and humorous. Tata Nano tried to rebrand from like cheapest car to a smart city car. However, not very successful. Lecture 8 has so we talk about market share analysis. It means it measures the percentage of a market's total unit sales revenue. All of this. So this basically this entire lecture we mainly focused on how well a company performs relative to its competitors. All of these are numerical values which you can look at in your own time. I will be jumping past all of these to make sure the video doesn't get way too long, which it already is. So moving on, so we are in lecture 10, I think, lecture 9, sorry. So um, consumer behavior. Here we talked about the black box theory of consumer behavior, also called the SOR theory. The black box theory explains how consumers respond to marketing stimuli. It is based on the SOR model, right, which is stimulus, organism, and response. It helps answer the question, which is why is someone making or not making a purchase? The factors that affect it are the four P's and other social factors such as friends and family. So, starting off with stimulus, this refers to all external factors that influence consumer behavior, uh, like a discount ad or an influencer review, something like that. Then you have organism, which refers to the consumer's mental and emotional process, also called the black box. This talks about buyer characteristics, which is about the person, and decision making process, which is how they make their entire decision, what whose opinion they value, what their perceived problem is, all of that. These internal factors cannot be directly observed, but they do shape how a consumer interprets stimuli. Next, you have response, which is observable behavior that a customer makes. We started off with external factors which influence behavior, internal emotional factors and emotional processes, mental processes, and observable external factors. Uh, in the context of marketing management, marketers cannot control the black box, but they can influence the stimuli. So by carefully designing the marketing mix, you can understand the marketing elements and also understanding how your customer psychology works and other related factors. Marketers can trigger desired responses like purchase, build a brand preference, and also improve conversion rates. Next, we are going to be moving on to factors that affect consumer behavior. Now, over here, I have attached a table which you can look at. The table has a lot of details. Uh, so, quickly going over those, you have cultural factors, which talks about how different values, beliefs, customs change from place to place, right? So McDonald's in North India has adapted its menu to be largely pure veg and not really serving beef or pork to like align with local religions, right? Moving on to social factors, this is like factors like family, reference groups, social roles, etc. So if a family is deciding on a destination to go, it is usually like done on the basis of the preferences of the children because they are the biggest pains when it comes to traveling. Uh, Demographic factors. This talks about statistical data about populations such as age, gender, income, occupation, and education level. A person with a high disposable income is more likely to purchase premium or luxury goods. Steps of consumer buying decision process. The standard process starts off with problem identification, so customer recognizes a need or a want. Second is information search, where like they look for information about a product or a service that could satisfy their like identified needs. Third is evaluation of alternatives, where they look at available alternatives and then evaluates them on the basis of their attributes and compares them. Then you have your purchase decision, followed by your purchase, and your post purchase evaluation, which also contains aspects like buyer remorse and cognitive dissonance. It is a feeling of post purchase psychological discomfort, right? Where the customer will continue to look for information about options that they earlier rejected, or maybe even look for newer options. Dissonance reducing behavior is actions taken by the consumer or the marketer to reduce this cognitive dissonance. Customer action can be like seeking positive information about like your chosen product or avoiding information about rejected alternatives. Marketing, so like marketer side, you can like provide after sales support and all of those aspects to make sure that it feels nicer. Then we have the two Gitesh sir lectures. What do we consume? Right? Consumers don't just buy products or services; they often buy solutions. Categories of like consumption are of three types. You have pure product, pure service, and a mix of the two. Pure product is a tangible product like toothpaste, soap. Pure service is intangible like teaching, medical consulting, haircut, etc. And product service mix has a mix of both. This can be restaurant where you have a food plus a service, or like CCTV where you have a product plus installation and monitoring. Solution selling is selling a combination of products and services as a complete solution. A software company sells a CRM service, a CRM system, which is a product along with setup and all of those. So a combination of services and products together, a combination of products and services together as a complete solution. Types of selling, you have your buyer to consumer, which is normal buying, hedonic buying, utilitarian buying. So normal buying, the thought process is like you know about it and then you buy it. Hedonic is emotion driven, you feel that it's good, so you buy it. Utilitarian is you know about it, you feel about it, and then you buy it. Again, the tables are all attached over here. Utilitarian purchases often take longer because of higher cost, long-term usage, and technical considerations. So, example for normal buying is something which is routine, like toothpaste or milk, for example. Hedonic is something which is like pleasure-based. So, buying a gift or maybe a pet or a designer cloth. Pet might not be the best example, but like clothes, for example. Utilitarian is basically like functional, rational, higher risk purchases. So buying a car, a phone, larger machinery, all of those. Business to business is the second category, also called B2B. It features here are ticket size, which is larger purchase amounts. Your decision making units, also called DMUs, is which is a group of individuals involved in making of the buying decision. Emotional selling, which is like emotional selling is not very effective. The decisions are usually logic and risk assessed and data driven, so emotional selling usually does not work in B2B. And you have nature of purchases, which is always utilitarian. You focus on ROI and efficiency. So the roles in a DMU are initiators who identify the need, users who use the product, influencers, people who provide advice or expertise, buyers who handle the transactions, decider who has the final authority, and gatekeeper who controls the information flow and access. Power in a decision making unit is not always visible. Main objective is to identify who truly holds the decision making ability. There are three types of B2B buying. You have new task buying, which means you're buying something for the first time. Right, the risk over here is high because you've never done so before. Straight rebuy is a repeat purchase, so you are buying the exact same product that you have just put like that you have already purchased. So like printer ink, for example. You always buy the same printer ink. You're not going to explore with that same brand, same exact ink, right? And then you have modified rebuy, which is you are rebuying from the same vendor. So you are rebuying the same thing, but like there is like some change, right? It can be quantity, it can be a different vendor, it can be a specification, all of those. This has a medium risk. Negotiation terms, you have VATNA and you have BATNA. VATNA is worst alternative to a negotiated agreement, right? Here you do not know your options. BATNA is your best alternative to negotiated agreement, which means you know your alternatives and you have a better leverage in the negotiation. Consumer buying behavior, every customer is unique with different needs, motivations, and processes. In a B2B context, you have your industrial buying behavior or IBB and organizational buying behavior or OBB. IBB involves buying raw materials for manufacturing and OBB involves buying goods and services for internal use, not for resale. Uh, Moving on to gatekeepers, a gatekeeper is an individual who holds access, who controls the access to the decision maker. Their importance, like it is important that you maintain good relationships with them so that because they can enable or block your access. In B2C context, they are often the key influencers. Uh, like for example, a child influencing the parent. In B2B, it's often like the administrative assistants or procurement head controlling the vendor meetings. Power isn't equally distributed in the DMUs. A true decision maker may not always be visible. Customer centricity, you put yourself in the customer shoes and focus on what they truly need. Key idea is buyer dissonance. Uh, so over in customer centricity, your main question is to ask how you can help the customer achieve their goals. Right? Buyer dissonance is the difference between what the gap between what the customer expects and what they receive. If it is lower, it usually causes them to be upset. So your solution to this is to set realistic expectations and deliver consistent quality. Service characteristics, again, they're all written over here: intangibility, inseparability, variability, and perishability. Intangibility means something which cannot be touched and stored. Inseparability, which means products which have to be consumed together. Variability means it may vary from person to person, and perishability means they cannot be inventoried or resold later. Certifications also add trust in the service selling industry. So, points of parity, points of difference, we have already discussed earlier. Upstream, midstream, and downstream. Upstream meaning activities related to product development. Midstream is manufacturing and processing. Uh, and downstream is distribution. Upstream also includes sourcing. Downstream includes distribution and customer facing activities. Relationship building in DMUs. Again, this is all pretty self explanatory, so instead of making an extra long video, I'm just skipping over that. Lecture 13. So, this should be the last one or second to last one. Stages in the consumer decision making process. You start off with problem identification, information search. Again, everything that we have already discussed, right? Evaluation of alternatives. You start off with a total set, you move on to an awareness set, then to a consideration set, and then to a choice set. This is how it works. You can always go back and reevaluate all of this on your own, right? You have different types of attributes and all of those. Check this on your own. Then after you make your final purchase, you have post-purchase behavior. So you use, you dispose, buyer dissonance, and loyalty. How do you reduce all of those strategies? Black box theory, again, all of it is covered over here. Maslow's need hierarchy. Next piece is Herzberg's two-factor theory, which means that you have two factors. One is hygiene factor, one is motivators. This is what it is called, so you just need to be careful about the name. Maslow's hierarchy talks about the triangle that we discussed at the start of the video, and Herzberg's two-factor theory talks about hygiene factors, which is your base level, and motivators, which are your second level. You also have levels of product. So one is a core product, which is a basic benefit; actual product, which is tangible; expected product, which is what the consumer expects. augmented product, which is additional features, and potential product, which is something which you can build in the future. Then we come down to locus of control. This refers to whether individuals believe they have control over their outcomes. Internal locus of control means that like you control your life, you can like that the consumer has like full responsibility over the decision. Uh, Examples is basically like full research before buying a laptop. If I do proper research on my own, then like I am the one who's responsible for that decision. External is that you are like relating to someone else, right? Fate or luck like controls the outcome. It's usually decisions that are dependent on external influences. Examples for this are like buying a product because a friend or an astrologer recommended it. Next, lecture 14. So we started off with laddering, which is the which in which you start off from features to benefits to values. Um, Examples for all of these are again listed over here. Laddering basically means you connect a product's feature, which is what it has, to the benefit, which is what it does for you, to the deeper value or emotional payoff, which is why the customer cares. Uh, it matters because like features alone don't create brand preferences. People also buy it based on benefits and values. If you are an Indian living in Canada, for example, if you have an American like if you have a Canadian salesman versus an Indian salesman, you will prefer the Indian salesman because of that inherent connection, right? So this usually talks about why the brand is selling. So L'Oreal has their entire brand tag, which is because you are worth it, right? And they sell it based on that. Pampers sells comfort and protection. So again, these are all examples which you should look at. But basically, your value is something that is an explanation. Benefit is something which is a little bit more simplified. It tells you what you are looking for, and feature is exactly why the benefit of yours actually holds value. Uh, it talks about concrete aspects. Then you have your like how you use laddering, which is you turn like a feature into a one-line benefit. So like one for moisturizing cream, right? You can turn into like leave skin soft all day, something like that. This is how you design a brand positioning statement. This is what the structure is. These are the different attributes. All of this is in the notes, so I would like recommend you look at all of those, and we can skip over all of this. Um, these are all just examples. Uh, so Tropicana not Tropicana for example, Absolute Vodka, right? Absolute Vodka entered like the vodka space in 1979 in like in a time where vodka was not looked at as something which was very outstanding. It lacked a lot of value to the consumer, and in order to fix this, what the brand ended up doing was they sold Absolute Vodka. They changed the way it was designed, so they created a new design for the bottle. They changed the branding. uh, they made it transparent, and they had like very fancy looking designs. So even though you don't care about the drink, you value the bottle. The bottle looks strong to you. So these are more details about how they like entirely went through with it. Again, like you later also move on to brand naming. Brand naming is of multiple types. Endorsed branding, which is sub brand carry their own identity but are like visibly endorsed by the main brand, right? So Courtyard by Marriott, for example, Courtyard has its own brand, but like when you say by Marriott, it is something which is endorsed by Marriott. And Timbuktu and Raystyle serve as co-brands. Parent-child or sub-branding, something like that. So Apple has iPhone, right, or the iPad. The parent brand lends equity. The parent brand, like the brand is named after whatever the parent does. So Nest thermostat by Google, for example. This is where you have a parent who is naming the child. House of brand theory. Um, it is a corporate ownership which has multiple brands under it, and like you might not even be aware that the brand is related to you, and this reduces risk for the overall brand because in case one brand goes wrong, you can like very easily detach it or like dissociate it. For example, Procter and Gamble or P&G has Tide, Pampers, Gillette, multiple brands. Unilever has the same, so Dove, Axe, Sunsilk, all of those. Branded house is a single master brand across multiple products, right? Everything carries a corporate name. So, for example, Virgin has Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Mobile, Google has Gmail, Google Maps, all of those, Google Earth. This is added for clarity. We did not necessarily discuss this in class, but I think you should know about it. And again, these are instructions, and then we move on to case studies, which are not coming in the exam. So that is the entire syllabus. Took roughly 1.5 hours. So if you are watching this, congratulations if you have reached this point. So yeah, that's the entire syllabus for marketing management one for our test on 6th.